What do you have for us?
Thank you, Jesse. Well, the road to peace for South Sudan has been really long and winding, and they've taken a few pit stops, but they're still going on in trying to achieve peace. Well, we can take a look at some of the issues that they have faced since the independence in 2011. So they had been warring against some of the Sudanese government, and then they seceded, achieved independence, and there was great hope that this country was going to come together, develop, and move forward and make use of its natural resources and just be, you know, a happily ever after story. So since 2011, between 2011 and 2013, things were touch and go, but then all hell broke loose when in 2013, when the president Salva Kiir actually accused his vice president Riek Machar of planning a coup against him, and of course there was a lot of conflict following that, and this was along tribal lines, the Dinka against the Nuer and vice versa. So this led to a lot of international concern, and this was the beginning of the rebellion, as you can see right here in 2013. So the international community was very concerned because of the stories that are coming out of that. Africa's youngest country were really concerning. Some of the atrocities were unheard of, and so a lot of people or organization, International Peace Organization, came together trying to push for peace. And therefore, moving on from there, we had in 2014 and 2015 peace talks, and the rebels actually split. Some of the rebel factions split, but then the talks were mediated by IGAD. We have the African Union also coming in to help mediate peace between the two warring factions. We had the EU, the USA, the UK, and even Norway coming to try and bring the two groups together, and they actually did sign a peace agreement, but this did not hold, unfortunately, and there was more fighting. Most of these agreements that have been signed in the past in South Sudan have not lasted for very long. They would hold together for a few months, and then somehow the fighting would go on, and then we had a mass exodus from that country to other countries such as Kenya and neighboring countries such as Uganda, because civilians were just fleeing from fighting and other atrocities that are unmentionable. So in 2016 and 2017, renewed conflict and rebel infighting continued, and then there was a split among the ruling Dinka. We know that they were fighting the Dinka against the Nuer, but then within the rebel groups there was also infighting, and then these groups actually split up, and so it was a bit of a mess right there. But in 2018, in September, we had a peace agreement that was signed, and the thing with this peace agreement is that this is the one that is holding till now, and we have seen that Riek Machar was reinstated as South Sudan's vice president, and they signed a peace deal in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and of course we had parties, the major party, which is ironic, was Sudan, that was mediating the peace treaty between these two parties. Now let's take a look at, like I said, Sudan was the mediator, and now that was in 2018, in September, I think on the 8th, when it was called the Khartoum Declaration of Agreement between Parties of Conflict. Now, if we could take a look at the elements of this agreement, we see that it was agreed, aside from Riek Machar being made the vice president again, it was agreed that there was going to be a permanent ceasefire throughout South Sudan, and aside from that, there was going to be a security arrangements to build a national army, the police, and other security organs. And the conditions for this was that this would disregard any tribal affiliation. It's going to be a united security force for the country of South Sudan. So the agencies too were supposed to be free of tribal and any ethnic affiliation. This is very important because we know that the warring and the conflict in that country has been based on tribes and tribal affiliations. And then there was going to be a national disarmament program to make sure that weapons that are being used to fight one another that were in the hands of civilians are going to be taken away, and obviously the government was to enforce this. And then they were going to do what we call the reverse bridging proposal, which is a mechanism of sharing of power that is going to see South Sudan just share power and then work together, all the parties work together in the run-up to an election that would see a new government elected into power. Well, now that those are the elements of those peace agreements. We know that a lot of conflict has happened in that country, a lot of sexual violence, a lot of atrocities towards refugees, and a lot of displaced persons, many of whom are in Kenyan camps and in Uganda and many other countries. And also, as part of political tensions in that country, have experienced some political disappearances and some arrests. And I'm sure Jesse is going to be discussing that with our studio guest today. But for now, that is all we have for you on the situation in South Sudan from 2013 all to now.
All right, many thanks. Trix Ingado, our regional affairs reporter, just breaking down the long road to peace that South Sudan, the world's youngest country, has actually endured. But now, on January 17th, 2019, a Kenyan court ended its 24-month oversight of the police investigations into the disappearance of two men. That's Dong Samuel Luwak, a prominent South Sudanese lawyer and human rights activist, and Agri Idri, who was a member of the political opposition. According to the news, they were snatched off the streets in Nairobi on January 23rd and 24th of 2017. The families have initiated or had initiated a petition for judicial review following concerns that the Kenyan police had not effectively investigated this particular matter. Now, recent ruling was actually given, and this changes the dynamics of this particular case. In studio already, Saif Magango, who's Amnesty International's East Africa Deputy Director, the Horn and the Great Lakes. I'm also joined by Aya Benjamin, the wife to Agri Esbon Idri, one of the missing individuals, as well as James Polit, who's the younger brother to Dong Samuel Luwak. We'll just get to shed light on this unfortunate turn of events and take a look at the missing links, as various bodies, human rights activists specifically, are actually pointing accusing fingers on the Kenyan government and the South Sudanese government of actually colluding to make sure that these individuals are missing. Where exactly are they? We'll try and substantiate these particular claims. Let's just take a short break right here on Bottomline Africa. We'll be back with that particular conversation, among other stories. Stay with us.